going for David Crabb. Come on, David Crabb.
I had been living in New York for a couple months when one night I was very drunk on the First Avenue L train stop when I thought like sort of a filthy Roomba was approaching me, and then I realized it was a giant rat. And it was like an old, it had like a cane and an eye patch, like it had seen things, you know what I mean? And I started to quickly kind of do sort of like a little, like just a combination of like sounds and shapes to scare it, and it was too. It had glaucoma. I don't know. It didn't. It wasn't afraid. And as it neared me, I jumped up on the bench, you know, like eek a mouse, like a '50s housewife. And then on the other side of the platform, I saw this beautiful. The only other person on the platform, this beautiful black woman. She was wearing this like batik gown with a matching hat. And as she walked towards me, like this filthy subway wind kind of blew it out like a cape. She was like so gorgeous. And as she neared me, the rat went towards her, and I was like, "Lady, there's a rat coming at you." And I'll always remember the lady saw me, she saw the rat, she sort of turned sideways, and then the rat stopped right in front of her like it was like a circus act or something. And then, totally calm, she scooped her foot under it, she kicked it in this delicate art, it splashed into a puddle, shook it off, ran off back to its home, and then she just said, "Ugh, stupid rat." This was indicative of my first 2 years of New York. I constantly felt like I was confronted with like weird shit that I wanted to freak out about, but I was like, no, the New Yorkers don't do that, it's normal. I lived in Texas most of my life, and I kept wanting to be like, oh my gosh, those buildings are so tall, that's Sarah Jessica Parker eating a niçoise salad. Those two dudes are holding hands. Like I was like the worst. I was the worst. So it was really hard for me because I got my first job at a gallery in Chelsea, which was like just the cradle of apathetic. Like everyone was over, their pants were just too tight to feel anything, you know what I mean? I worked in this gallery, like upstairs there would be like middle-aged people in like chunky glasses and severe haircuts and like earth-tone tunics, and they would like stare at something and be like, is this painting really about gender? Like that was like, and it was so not why I moved to New York, because when I was younger I was obsessed with New York because I loved mainly the club kid movement of the 90s. Like I was obsessed. Club kids were these grown men who would like go to clubs like shirtless in glitter with like a diaper and platform shoes and a pacifier. Like that was what they did. They were on talk shows. They were like this big scene in New York. And their queen was Björk. Björk was like my favorite. I know she was Icelandic and not from New York, but I loved her. I loved when she danced to big band music with like mailboxes. I loved when she screamed over the techno music. Like I loved everything about her and that whole scene. But when I got to the gallery, it was just all so like dull and boring and everyone being cool. But my boss at the gallery was a retired club kid named Wallpaper. Now, this was very exciting to me. I knew who Wallpaper was. I'd seen him on Sally Jesse Raphael like 1,000 times. But the weird thing was, he wasn't like that anymore. Like, it wasn't like he was there like in a bustier with a mohawk wig and like smeared makeup. He was like a guy with like a crop haircut and a vintage shirt and jeans. And I felt like he kind of reminded me that I'd missed my time to move there. You know what I mean? Like, there was no more like spontaneous rave on a subway car. That just was not happening. But I would work in the basement, like packing sculptures and unpacking paintings with him all day, and I would sort of like try to get little stories about him from like the Clubland days, but I didn't want to ask because I didn't really care, you know what I mean? Because he was like that. All day he would look at paintings and be like, oh, I hate this theory. It's just like so over everything, you know? And the thing about working with him was that like all day, people would always meet him for lunch, famous people. Like half the cast of Dawson's Creek for some reason, Anthony from Anthony and the Johnsons, all of these famous like artists and musicians and like club kids, and I would have to be like, oh yeah, Sandra Bernhard's here for you, who cares? And inside I was like, oh my god! You know what I mean? Like, and it was such a challenge, and as time went on, like I kept waiting for him to invite me to lunch. That was all I wanted. I was like, one day he's gonna invite me to lunch. And after like 3 months one day, Wallpaper was like, hey David, do you want to go to lunch today? And I was like, yes! But I wasn't, because I had to challenge him. So I was like, yeah, but I can't go for an hour. I totally could have, but I just felt like, I'll meet you, bitch. And then he was like, well, I can go, but I can't have Mexican. I was like, well, I can't have Chinese. And like, we did this little tete-a-tete. And then finally we were like, okay, we're gonna go to lunch. Let's do it. So like an hour later, we're sitting outside on 8th Avenue on this like patio, and we're like judging art and talking about how dumb things are. I'm like, ugh, I'm with Walt. And then I look up, and coming down the street is Bjork. She is in this little 50s lime green dress. It's cinched here, big shoulder pads, like hair up and big. She looks like the Lily Tomlin, like operator, like that. Like that's how she's dressed. And she's surrounded in a square formation of like Versace models with gelled hair in tuxedos. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. I don't know if she's Bjork. That's how she rolls. And as she's walking towards me, I'm like, oh my God. She stops to cross the street right at the corner, like she's like 5 feet from me, and she looks over her shoulder to like fix her dress, and we lock eyes, and I think, oh my God, you're Bjork. But I don't think that. I look at her in her face, and I say, oh my God, you're Bjork! And she looks at me a little bit confused, the way, you know when you're on like a crowded subway train and everyone's a little bit weird, it's late at night, so you pick like the guy with the briefcase and the suit, and then he opens it and it's full of like porno and moldy sandwiches, and then you have to be like, that's how she's looking at me, like, you are not correct. And then I look at her and I say again, you're Bjork! And at this point, was she like, thanks for reminding me who I am? Like, I don't know what she's thinking, right? And I am so embarrassed, and she crosses the street, like she can't cross the street fast enough. And then I can feel like the hot heat of wallpaper. I'm like, oh, fuck. What did I? And I turn to him and I look and I'm waiting for it. And then he has like a fork of Cobb salad and he just says, oh, she's wearing that again. Thank you.